Good evening. 7 o'clock. The meeting will come to order. I am Grace Lesperance, Cascade Township Supervisor. One member of our board is remote. Lucky for him, Treasurer Pierce. Nice to see you on our screen. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Trustee Pierce.
Here, sort of.
Treasurer Pierce, sorry. Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Clerk Slater, here. Supervisor Lesperance.
Here. Please rise if possible for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God,
Under God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
Is there discussion or a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved. Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley to approve the agenda, the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Or not consent, excuse me, regular agenda. Any opposed? Motion carried. Article 4, presentations. Tonight, we have 2 officers from the Kent County Sheriff's Department here to update us on police coverage in Cascade. We have Lieutenant Justin DeBode, and maybe only Lieutenant Justin DeBode. Officer Dieppe was going to be here, but oh, you can handle it, or okay. They will provide us an update on statistics about calls and response time. But first, before we hear from them, we have Manager Swayze here to give us a brief update on the status of some matters of priority, matters of interest to the public, but that are not specifically on tonight's agenda. Manager Swayze.
Great, thank you. So it's been a busy first part of the month for us. So we certainly have a lot of things that are going on, and I appreciate the opportunity just to give you an update on where we are on a couple of these items. So we do have our fire station RFP currently distributed. We distributed it directly to 18 architecture firms that we are aware of that we knew specialized in public safety facilities. I'm happy to report that nearly all of them have indicated some type of interest in the project and have reached out to myself or Chief Majors to get more information. In addition, we've had some companies that we did not send the RFP out to reach out to us. That means that as we knew what happened, it got picked up by the trade publications, the trade websites, and it's heading out to those as well. So that RFP closes at the end of next week. And the anticipation is that after the Public Safety Advisory Committee goes through their review process, we'll have a bid recommendation to the board at the first meeting in July. So we're happy that that's moving along. I wanted to talk a little bit about the PFAS project. As we announced at the last meeting, the Township's application in partnership with the City of Grand Rapids was selected for funding and was selected for the full $5 million. Grand Rapids has their own process that they need to go through in order to accept that money. That's on their agenda for their June 15th City Council meeting to do that. In the meantime, we're having conversations with the City of Grand Rapids about how that grant and the associated project will be administered. We'll have a recommendation on that for the Infrastructure Committee at their next meeting, and we'll come to the city, the Township Board accordingly. We're in a great place timeline-wise for that project to break ground in spring of 2022. And with any luck, the entire project, including phase 1 and phase 2, will be completed by the end of 2023. So we're in a great position there. Also wanted to mention that our special counsel for that issue, Doug Van Essen, and Supervisor Lesperance as well, had an initial meeting with the airport. They pinch hit for me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend there, but Doug does have a series of communications that he's drafting for the Township Board, and he anticipates at the next board meeting to have a meeting with the board as a whole to talk about the next steps in that process. So as soon as those are finished, I'll provide those to the township board. Of course, being a legal procedure that will happen in closed session at that meeting. I'll talk a little bit about the strategic plan. We're finalizing our timeline and process for the strategic plan. Strategic plan is going to involve 2 community-wide surveys, in addition to a series of input meetings. 2 of those input meetings will be for the community at large. So residents, businesses, interested people, anybody that want to come out will be able to provide their input. And then there'll be a series of specific meetings as well. So there'll be a specific input session with the Planning Commission, specific input session with the Downtown Development Authority and our business community, a special input session with staff, and of course, special input session with the Township Board as well. So the way that it'll work, there'll be an initial survey that'll go out. Once that survey information is compiled, we'll have those input sessions. They'll take the information they got from the survey and input session, basically develop that into a second survey that'll go out to the community at large as well. And then a report back to the Township Board and the other entities for their blessing. So it's anticipated that process will wrap up at the end of September, though it may bleed into the beginning of October a little bit. But we're on schedule for that one as well. The last item I wanted to give you an update on was our special assessment district. At the last Township Board meeting, the board did vote on 2 resolutions to rescind resolution number 3 and resolution number 4 in regards to the special assessment district process. Notification has been made by our special counsel for that project to the tax tribunal. We did have 4 pending tax tribunal cases. We're also in the process of finalizing the payments back to those 4 petitioners as it was approved by the Township Board at the last meeting. The next step in the process is the certification of the roll. We have a meeting set up next week with myself, Supervisor Lesperance, our assessor, and our council to review the roll to answer any questions that anybody might have before that gets certified. When that's certified, then we basically pick up that process at resolution 3. So a certified roll would be reported to the clerk, which would then in turn come in front of the Township Board. If they so choose, they would approve resolution 3, which then essentially says, yep, we have this roll and we're setting our next public hearing. So that public hearing has to meet all of the advertising requirements. So it'd have to be in a newspaper of general circulation, which now is just the Grand Rapids Press twice, once of which is no less than 10 days prior to the public hearing. And then that notice is sent directly to all of the people that are associated in the SAD as well. So I know there's a lot of information or a lot of projects going on that the board would be interested in, as well as the public. And I appreciate the opportunity to give you guys the update.
Thank you. Lieutenant DeBoot and Deputy Diapa, welcome.
Good afternoon. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Justin, and I'm assigned to Road Patrol. I oversee the south and east precincts, including Cascade Township, for Road Patrol services. So I appreciate the invite to come here. I'm going to speak on a couple things. One of which I understand that there's been some questions posed by some citizens of Cascade Township regarding response time. We provide a quarterly report for those townships that fund township patrols, including Cascade. In that quarterly report, 2 of the objects are our average hold time and our average response times. Those times cover priorities 1 through 9. Priorities 1 through 9. So each call that comes into our dispatch center is categorized based on the type of call it is, the type of crime it may be, and based on that, it dictates our response. So those average times are for priorities 1 through 9, all priorities. Priority 1 and 2 are emergency response type calls. It could be an injury accident. It could be an in progress type crime. Those would be an emergency response by our deputies. And as expected, for those 2 particular priority of calls, the response time and the hold time is less than what's reported on these quarterly reports, if that makes sense. So last quarter, Cascade Township had over priorities 1 through 9, an average hold time of 4 minutes and 28 seconds. They also had an average response time of 13 minutes and 42 seconds. Those numbers are very consistent with our other funded township patrols. For the townships that do not have funded patrols, the average hold time and response time is significantly increased. I ran numbers for March 1st through the end of March, and for priorities 1, just as a comparison. For priority 1, which would be our most severe type call, the average response time was 7 minutes. So significantly less than the average over priorities 1 through 9. Our average hold time for that same priority 1 was 28 seconds. So if somebody asks if I am a victim of a home invasion, somebody's actively breaking into my house, that can be considered a priority 1, and our response would be much quicker than the average that's reporting on that quarterly, if that makes sense. Any other questions regarding response times?
You don't have a closer number for the home invader question, do you?
It varies. There are several factors that affect our response. Obviously, for priorities, the benefit of a priority 1 or a priority type call, which a home invasion would classify a home invasion progress, is neighboring jurisdictions or neighboring townships. For example, Caledonia, if this particular residence was close to a border, other township patrols would respond, whereas a non-priority, just a reportable type crime, they wouldn't. In addition, if a township assigned patrol officer was on a call and a priority call came out, they could clear that call immediately and respond to the higher priority. So there are several factors that affect response, and it would be nearly impossible for me to tell a resident that, yes, we would be there within this amount of time. It's based on averages. The numbers in Cascade Township are very consistent, if not better than other townships that have funded patrols. So looking at the last quarter, I'm very pleased. I actually would have expected that average response time to be around 16 minutes, which is consistent with our other townships. So 13 minutes, it's a good response. In comparison, if Cascade Township is 36 square miles, if you think of a straight highway from one end of the township to the other end of the township at 80 miles an hour, it's going to take me nearly 5 minutes without any traffic obstructions. So a 7-minute priority 1 response time is very appropriate, if that makes sense. So it depends on where the call is coming from, where the deputy's responding from, but 7 minutes is well within appropriate range. It's a priority of the sheriff's office and the sheriff. It's part of our strategic goal for all priority 1s and priorities 2s to respond within 11 minutes. That's our goal. That's a national average. And Cascade Township is within that. If that makes sense. Second thing I want to talk about, over the last year, we've experienced a significant increase in calls for service in what I will call the hotel corridor along 28th Street, particularly in between Patterson and Craft Avenues. This has resulted in meetings between sheriff's personnel and township representatives. It's concerning. The calls for service have increased. The severity of crimes have increased. Some of the recent documented criminal activity has included a homicide, drug overdoses, weapon offenses, active shooting calls, unlawful imprisonment, felonious assaults, domestic disputes, and assorted property crimes. As a result of this increase, we developed an action plan in April, and we implemented that action plan with the assistance of Township, who funded overtime patrols. We ran the action plan over the last month, and to highlight some of the statistics, it began on April 23rd. And the goal of this was saturation patrols along 28th Street. When I say saturation patrols, we wanted to assign 4 to 6 patrol deputies to that short corridor for 2 to 4 hour stints and not react to calls for service, but proactively look for crimes, proactively engage residents that were staying at the hotels and the parking lots. And it resulted in a number of statistical data. Overall, given April 23rd through May 30th, we assigned a total of 83 different deputies on 29 different dates for 334 hours of patrol. During those patrols, we initiated 260 traffic stops, 52 assists, 30 vehicle searches, 42 citizen contacts, and responded to 63 calls for service. Those patrols resulted in 60 cited and custodial arrests. Those arrests included charges of operating while intoxicated, felon in possession of a firearm, fleeing and eluding, receiving and concealing a stolen vehicle, traffic violations, parole violations rather, and outstanding arrest warrants. The most frequent arrests were for charges of violation of the Controlled Substance Act, narcotic charges, including 9 arrests for possession of meth, crack cocaine and or heroin, and 3 arrests for possession with intent to deliver methamphetamine, crack, or heroin. So all serious type crimes. But those results had a positive effect. Over that month, we saw a decrease in calls for service at every hotel in that corridor compared to the previous month, which was the goal. We also had great buy-in from all the hotels within that corridor. Deputy Diepa, your community police officer, worked internally with those hotels. He established a contact list, shared information amongst the hotels for problem guests, and all of the hotel general managers welcomed our presence. Statistically comparing March, when we saw that uptick, we responded to 149 calls for service. In the neighboring month, when we were doing these proactive patrols, it was reduced to 101 calls for service. And keep in mind that when we're responding, when we're proactively initiating these calls, we would have expected our numbers to increase because we are drawing numbers and complaint numbers on each one of these arrests. So with that, we still saw a reduction, which I'm happy to report. Does anyone have any questions regarding these proactive patrols?
Do you have any idea what made Cascade such a interesting spot to create crimes?
I think it's a combination of factors. If you look at the hotel rental rates, there were at least 3 hotels with rental rates of under $50. So that naturally draws in clientele that may not be normal guests of those hotels. Obviously, travel was reduced over the last year due to the pandemic. That certainly had an effect. And I think word spreads. And as word spreads that, hey, we can come stay at these hotels and partake in unlawful activity, it also spreads on, hey, the police are doing proactive patrols in these areas and actively arresting people for violation of crimes. So there's, I think, a number of factors that go into that.
Thank you.
What do you recommend moving forward?
We met 2 weeks ago with Ben Swayze, and my recommendation at that time was I was pleased with the numbers. They're consistent with pre-pandemic numbers, to end those patrols at the conclusion of May 30th. And we will continue to monitor the statistics. I expect coming into the summer months that we will start seeing a slight uptick. That's to be expected. And if the uptick becomes unsatisfactory for us and the township, we can re-implement an action plan similar to what we've done already.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've heard a lot of questions from residents about just speeding in general, Cascade Road and Thornapple River Drive. And I know it's not an easy answer, but You're kind of stuck in the middle between your bosses and the Cascade board.
Yeah.
What would you say to those residents? That are-
Speeding is by far, it's not isolated to Cascade Township. It is by far the most frequent and common complaint that we get countywide. We address it in a number of ways. I know Cascade has taken the initiative for speed board placements, which is effective. We've run studies on certain areas, and in some instances, the speed limit for a particular area actually increases after we conduct these studies, as the majority of traffic is following that speed limit or above. It is not isolated to Cascade Township. I would recommend that if a citizen lives in a particular neighborhood where they feel speeding is a significant problem, to call the sheriff's office. We can assign our 416 traffic unit to that detail. We have 2 speed boards in-house that we can set out and actually study the speed and traffic patterns of that area. It's not isolated to Cascade Township, though. It's a very common complaint.
Do you have any recommendations that for things that this board can do if residents want to put more money towards it, or specifically what we can do on our end to help you if we want increased attention to that issue?
Yeah, I think the most common is obviously there's a Cascade Township patrol unit assigned to Cascade Township. They're responsible for traffic enforcement, but they're also responsible for calls for service. So traffic is secondary at times. So when they're available, when they're not on a call, they're proactively conducting traffic enforcement. Last year was unique with the pandemic. We were instructing our officers not to engage in proactivity because of the pandemic. I'm happy to report we are back to business as normal. Our officers are making traffic stops and enforcing traffic laws. You also have a township community officer that can assist with traffic enforcement. Obviously, in a perfect world, we would have dedicated officers solely for traffic. Our traffic unit has dwindled from 7 assigned dedicated officers to traffic to now we have 2, and they're also responsible for accident investigations. So that's a statewide initiative. Obviously, the more people, the more officers that a township funds, the more resources you have at your disposal.
Can the township direct funds specifically for that purpose?
For absolutely.
For traffic?
It would be a special event type thing, similar to what we did with the action plan. If you had a specific area that was a repeat problem. But I think that there's other avenues that we could explore before the township would have to spend funds to do that. Like I said, I would prefer to go through our traffic unit first. And if we do a study and that study is unfounded and you continue to get complaints for a particular area, then it may be something we explore. That makes sense.
Any contact information for residents that may want to reach out and ask additional questions?
For me?
Should they go
Yeah.
through the township or?
Yeah, if my information's online, it's Justin DeBode, www.accesskent.com. My direct number is 616-632-6492. All right,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Do you have time to take a couple questions from the public?
Yeah,
Or
I'll stick around.
as long as it doesn't go too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just curious, if you maybe know how many times you guys have responded to the big block crossing?
Sorry. I was curious if you have any idea how many times deputies have responded to the mid-block crossing on 28th Street. I'm sorry, Cascade and 28th Street, right in front of the barber shop.
Mid-block crossing.
Yes, where they constantly take out signs. I've been to the barber shop and he said the first year he stopped counting after 55 strikes.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't answer that, but it's something that I could easily look up.
Yeah, I was there when the road commission was replacing one of the signs and asked, who pays for this? And he said either the If there's an accident report, then they go after the driver's insurance, but otherwise, if not, then the county pays for it to fix the signs. And they said it's the busiest sign replacement in the county.
That does not surprise me.
No, it's been there for 6 years, and I don't know, I think it may be time for it to go back to regular
I was
pavement.
gonna say,
Just
do you have a solution?
take it out. Regular pavement would be my solution.
Any other questions?
Supervisor Lessman's, we do have a member of the audience virtually who would like to ask a question. That's Craig Merlin.
Good evening, Mr. Merlin. Please proceed.
Now you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will start again. I actually had a couple of questions. The first is, as you go through those priorities 1 through 9, what I looked at the common or the most common crimes in Cascade, one of them is domestic simple assault. What would that be amongst your priorities?
If it depends on if it's an assault in progress. Any in progress crimes would fall under priority 1 or priority 2. If it's a domestic dispute, a reportable crime where the male half or the female half, the assaultive party isn't on scene, it would be considered a reportable, and that could be classified as a priority 8 or 9.
Okay.
If it's a domestic disturbance, civil dispute where there's just an argument and both parties are on scene, it would likely be classified as a priority 4, or maybe a priority 5, but it could be upgraded in the event we get information while en route that it's becoming more physical, for example.
Or someone brings a weapon. One of the other most popular crimes there was obstruction of justice. What do you classify as that?
That could be a arrest warrant. That could be a resisting and obstructing type crime. So that would classify as that as well.
So if a person who was pulled over talks back to the officer, is that viewed as obstruction?
Nope, that's within your First Amendment right.
At what point does it become obstruction?
If I give you a lawful command that you're under arrest and then you refuse to follow my commands once given that instruction, for example, if I tell you to turn around and place your hands behind your back and instead you tense up and I have to physically manipulate your hands behind your back, that would be obstruction of justice or resisting and obstructing.
If someone calls that says there is a suspicious person on my property, is that an in progress higher priority?
What's making that person suspicious?
There shouldn't be people on my property at 1 in the morning.
Okay, so you've added more information. So it's nighttime. This person is trespassing on your property. That would probably be considered a priority 3 or 4. Now, if that same person is now on your porch banging on your door for trying to force entry, well, then obviously that becomes more of a priority.
And you can get there on average, 7 minutes and 28 seconds if it's the first priority.
Priority 1 or 2.
Okay. Now, the next question I have goes to trend lines with regard to crime, because your report actually, when you take an average over 9 different categories, it's not particularly meaningful to a reader to look at a 23-minute response time without knowing the sort of tiering aspect of it. So I appreciate you coming to give some meaning to those sheets of paper. You also don't have over the last several years what the trend line has been. So if we were looking at priority 1 and 2 calls over the last 3 years, what has that trend line been for Cascade Township?
Well, I can give you the line for the entire county to put it in reference. In 2019, the priority 1 average response time was 10 minutes and 43 seconds countywide. And that's over 23 data points. There's 21 townships, the city of Cedar Springs and the city of Kent City.
But you don't have that information for Cascade Township.
Not for specific cash time. I ran the statistics for March of this year, and that's where that 7-minute mark comes from. What I can give you is the average, which these reports reflect. Since we've tracked them since 2017, I can give you the average for priorities 1 through 9 and show you the consistency with that. But if you wanted numbers pulled out for specific priorities 1 and 2, that would be an amount of work, and we haven't provided those to the township.
Okay, so
I
still
could,
should keep my weapons then here at home to defend myself.
well, that's your Second Amendment, right? And if that's what you feel is necessary, well, that's you're right.
Well, if you're going to get there in 7 minutes or in 13 minutes, that person could go from suspicious on the property to through a window or a door pretty quickly.
That's hypothetical, yes. And again, these are all averages. It's quite possible that perhaps luck is on your side that day and that deputy's parked down the road and is there within 15 seconds.
Yeah, I kind of prefer to rely on more than just luck.
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. I can't provide you with an exact number. It would be merely impossible. What I can do is I can provide you with averages, and that's what guides us in this. And obviously, as a homeowner, you have every right to bear arms. And but I would highly encourage you, if you do see anything suspicious on your property, to report it. Call 911 immediately, so we have that information and we can respond.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more, sir.
I live on the approach to a school. There was, that I can tell, there was 3 times that they had cruisers sitting there watching the mothers drive up the street with a phone in one hand, cup of coffee in the other, and just speeding. They lost some bus drivers, so they're backed up down the street. They showed up this week. They had half a day, and there was a cruiser sitting there on the end of the street. Could they come a little oftener?
So my assumption is the cruiser that you saw was very likely a school resource officer that is likely assigned to that school district.
It said Kent County on the side of it.
Yeah, they are in marked patrol units as well. We have school resource officers in every school district within our patrol area, with the exception of Kenwood Hills and East Kentwood. So my assumption is it was a school resource officer. That issue in terms of school-related traffic is not isolated to Cascade either. We are experiencing problems with traffic based upon pickup and drop-off times, not only in Cascade, but Caledonia, Byron. It's a county-wide issue, and it's a result of parents not electing to have their children ride buses, and or the school is not offering bus services. I hope that this coming fall that issue is diminished when we're hopefully back to normal in terms of busing options and parents being comfortable with their kids on buses. but that is, it's created problems across the county with traffic issues. If there's a specific concern, I know citizens, for a speeding violation, we have to witness it to take enforcement action. So if you call in a complaint of speeders, there's nothing that we can do, even if you obtain a license plate of a speeder to take enforcement. That's a violation that we have to witness and actually have to record with either our radar or a laser to issue a summon or citation for that type of violation. However, if you have a repeat problem where in your opinion, you're noticing a number of speeders, we're more than welcome to take that information down, track the day and time that you're noticing most of that traffic, and we will assign one of our traffic cars out to that area to monitor it.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Welcome.
Thank you, Omar, or Deputy Diapa. Article 5, public comments. We welcome the opportunity for everyone in Cascade to share their ideas, thoughts, and concerns. We want to give everyone an opportunity to be heard and at the same time be respectful of everyone's time. So as a new supervisor and trying to do both, we ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And remember, this part of the meeting is generally so that we as a board can hear directly from you. If you have specific questions or if you'd like to have a back and forth conversation, please, the better time may be to call or email the township directly, staff or myself or anyone on the board. You may get more personal attention than during this public comment section. So with that, anyone wishing to speak, please step up to the podium, and we'd like your name and address for the record keeping. And also we can take comments virtually as well. Good evening, Mr. Whitley.
Thank you. Chuck Whitley, 5030 Sequoia Drive. I've been a long-term supporter of the SAD, and in that process, I've been exposed to the township handling of communication, and there's been some changes, and I'm just trying to get some clarification as to what, if someone comes to me and say, hey, Chuck, I want to get my voice, heard by the township, what should I do? Back in the fall and continuing on for several months, if people sent emails, asked that those comments be put into the public record, they were included in the packet, they were read during the meeting, and there was an airing of the topic there. That has not happened in the last little bit here. The most recent packets do not include email communications. I would say that the other thing where people can participate is by commenting and speaking like I'm doing right here. And in the past, that was never really acknowledged. The idea of it being included in the minutes of the meeting, I wholeheartedly think that yes, for this meeting, there included in the packet was the minutes from last meeting, and it included a 1.5-line synopsis of people that spoke. And I think that is a fantastic improvement to actually acknowledge that that people were doing this where that was not previously included. So as the long and the short of it here is that it used to be that if you sent an email asking it to be read in the public record, it got the highest visibility. Right now, that in this most recent round, it got 0 visibility. And what has some new visibility due to the thankful improvement in the minutes turnaround and the publishing of those, it seems now that coming up and talking is the most effective way of having your message heard and acknowledged, in a public way. So I checked the website, and there is a Cascade Charter Township Public Participation Plan dated October 10th, 2018. And it outlines some of the things that should be happening, including the timely production of minutes. And again, I totally applaud the change that's occurred in that area there. But I'm just kind of wondering what's really happening and what is the best way if someone comes to me and says, how do I let my voice be heard? What should I direct them to do? Should I direct them, to send emails? If so, to who? If the only effective way is to talk and to physically be here, I just need some clarifications. As a board, you can do whatever you want as long as you have a policy and it has three things. It's legal, you tell people about it, and you accept the consequences of implementing that plan. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And Manager Swayze, I don't know of any change in policy, but I haven't been here long enough of how we have handled emails differently since I've been here at least, but do you have a response to Mr. Whitley, or do you know something about that I don't, or anyone on the board?
Yeah, so the reading of comments into the record actually came specifically from our hybrid meeting plan that was part of the Open Meetings Act. So every board that we've had that's either been virtual or hybrid like this has this 2-page sheet that accommodates it. And the public participation section on that says that members of the public wishing to attend virtually will be able to listen and view all discussions by the Township Board, and all official materials for this meeting prepared for the Township Board will be included in the meeting packet available to the public on the Township website. Individuals will be permitted to speak during public comment periods in accordance with the Township Remote Public Meeting Procedure Policy. If you would like to contact the Cascade Township Board about any matter on the agenda or otherwise, please do so via email at the addresses below, a minimum of 8 hours prior to the meeting. If you wish your comments to be read into the public record during the public comment period, you must indicate so and draft communication that can be read in the allotted 3-minute time frame. So we have tried to, if people send us communication and it specifically says they want it read into the record, we do that. In fact, I have one that I have to read tonight after everybody else that wants to speak speaks. But that's really the only change that has happened. And then the board as a group will have to decide post-pandemic when the OMA no longer allows official hybrid meetings, if they want to continue that practice or if they want to go a different route.
Thank you. You can, the question about, did we ever attach emails to our public packet? Mr. Whitley asked that before the meeting.
It depends on the situation.
Okay. Clear as mud?
Okay, just to be clear, we were at the previous meeting, we were under the hybrid meeting arrangement still. And to my knowledge, there were no emails read in that were requested to be read into the public record at that last meeting. Because I didn't hear any, that were done, so. Okay.
We can look and
All
get
right,
back to you.
I appreciate
Can I
the
speak to that?
response.
Yeah, sure. If they may send emails, but if they specifically say, please read into the record, then we will read them into the record.
Okay, well,
that's-
none were read last meeting. And I know I for one sent in one that did have that line on it. So I don't know what others may or may not have done. So
I don't recall specifically.
I just wasn't sure that, is there, just a clean policy? Again, tell me what the rules are and I'll follow them.
Okay. So Jen, if you want, and yes, if you request, if a resident requests that they be read in the record, our policy is that they should. So we can go back and look at the last meeting. And
All right.
But
Thank
that's
you.
the
Thank you very
policy.
much. You can on with your meeting.
no, it's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Scott Van Salkema, 2570 Orange. I am here to talk about the Wycliffe property. I don't mind it. I think it'd be fine to purchase it, but my only stipulation is to perhaps sell the Thornapple property that was bought back in 2015, both 2800 and 2804, for about the tune of, $330,000. That includes tearing down the house, and that was for about 0.533 acres. Between 2010 and 2015, the township collected on those two properties around $26,000 in taxes. Since the township purchased it with that outlay of over $300,000, no money has been brought in on those very nice parcels of land on the riverfront. Was watching the video last council meeting, and I believe, yes, Mr. McDonald there said that we want to be a good steward of the township's money, but he was the first person to authorize the purchase of those 2800 and 2804 property on Thornapple. So for a much smaller parcels of land, you had no problem spending over $300,000 on that. And I only was able to look at that because they just recently put the 2015 minutes and board packets up on the website. They did do that, and that's what I was doing when I first showed up here, because I wanted to check and see if those had been there to actually look and find out the details of that. And then the meeting after the township board decided to purchase those parcels of land, there was a lot of upset people that they're like, why is this? What's the purpose of buying this land? Is there going to be a park? Are they going to put a boat ramp? It's 9 parcels in from Cascade Road. And there's, some of the neighbors that live right there. It's like, I have no plan on selling my place. And so basically, what is the point of owning those properties? Like, cause and I've been here before, and a lot of people say it's still public government owned property. There was a split rail fence there. There was questions if you can put up a no trespassing sign, and they said, no, you can't do that. So I'm looking at going to buy myself a kayak, and I'll just go and start putting that in on the river myself. If it's government owned property and I, as a taxpayer, help pay for that, I'm going to start using and enjoying the river, unless you guys want to sell it. And then if you do sell it, then use the proceeds and buy this park, that Wycliffe property. I have no problem with that, but just having green space to have green space, as long as there's a plan for this, the park thing, fine, but sell this piece of land that is just sitting there for the past 6 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a virtual comment from Chris.
One
You gotta go to the
second.
podium. We ask that you go to the podium.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Molly Miller, 1490 Briarcliff, and I'm speaking to the same effect of the property on the Thornapple. I know years ago, they purchased the property thinking they'll just keep gobbling up the rest of the property and maybe putting a park and taking Tuffy out eventually. Well, it's not going to happen, as we see. And I feel the same way. It's just sitting there and nobody can use it, but there is this beautiful piece of property that overlooks all of Cascade that everybody could use. It could be a park. It could be just something beautiful that the whole community could come together and make it beautiful. And coming out of the pandemic, it's like we need something to bring the community together. Bottom line, the kids need something, whether it's a park to help fix and plant flowers. Older people need it to come together as a community. And the Thornapple River, we can't get, nobody can use it. So I need you guys all to really think about that and think about this. After being in the pandemic, we need to do something positive for the community, for everybody, and not having somebody that's wealthy from the community come in and purchase it and donate it. Have everybody kind of come together and work on this. I've been in the community for 31 years. My husband's whole family has been here ever for 50 years. My husband was baptized on that hill in the church. And so it is part of Cascade. And I think it's just crazy and criminal to think, well, we're just going to keep this tiny sliver of the river because nobody can use it. There are different regulations to get on the river. And so I need you guys to all come together and just think of little kids using it, older people taking walks, enjoying the community, and it overlooks the river. It's a beautiful piece of property that everybody can enjoy. And so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is a first for me, so I don't know protocol.
Welcome.
My name is Shirley Ross. I live on Oran Drive. And I want to thank everybody that's here tonight. And Jim, hi. And just for doing what you do for the township. Like I say, I live on Oran Drive, and I want to talk about the Wycliffe property from several perspectives, if I can. The first would be historically. If you look back in the Cascade book, you're going to see that there was a horse farm there once upon a time. And secondly, there is that old staircase, that stairway going up from Cascade Road. There is the stone wall. Township is not taking care of those. Those are part of the history of this place. They are falling apart. Township needs to do something about that. Whether you guys end up selling the property to this person or to that entity or whatever, you need to do something about beautifying that, because that's kind of the entrance coming off of Cascade Road. I want to know if you guys sell it and somebody comes in and builds however many houses and cuts down even more trees, who's going to take care of the wall? Who's going to take care of that stairway? Once again, it goes back to that. And do you guys have any idea about how many houses, what type, the price range? Are those houses, and we live our street, and we've got about 5 or 6 people here from our street tonight. And we all live in smaller ranch houses. If McMansions go in there, is that going, if it gets sold for that purpose, is that going to affect our tax base on our road? And I would like to know that information. We're on wells, we're on septic systems. What would happen to that property if you sold it for houses? And if it is sold for houses and they have to drill for wells, what's going to happen to our wells? That's something that needs to be considered seriously, very, very seriously. What if those people came in, if it gets sold for houses and they want street lights? We don't have street lights. And I think, do we like it? No street lights on our street? It's dark. So would they come in and would they be able to say, oh, we want it like this, we want it like that, and up on Oran, they don't like it, blah, 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 blah. That hill up there, you cut down those trees. Imagine the noise from Cascade Road. Go stand on that property tomorrow. Stand over so you can see Cascade Road and the river and the bridge. Listen. If all those trees get cut down, that's what the neighborhoods are going to start to hear again.
30 seconds.
And one more. What's going to happen to our tax base? And if Cascade Township turns this into a park, you've got a beautiful piece of property that defines the township. Trees. Look at it up there. It's right behind you. Trees, they'll all get cut down. The stone wall and the stairway not taken care of now. Is it just going to, a part of the history, is it just going to continue to fall into despair? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the audience in person? Or virtually?
We do have several members that would like to comment virtually. The first is Chris Nordic.
Chris Nordike.
Chris Nordyke.
So as a member of our planning committee. Good evening, Mr. Nordike.
Good evening. Often confused with Timmy Nordhook.
Both on the planning commission.
And we sit next to each other, which makes it even more complicated. I wanted to call tonight and voice my support for the park on Wycliffe. I am an avid bike rider and would absolutely support a trailhead, and to my knowledge would be the only trailhead. I also would echo what Shirley said from a historical perspective. In the 20s, that's where Roger Wyke's house, the name Wycliffe, came from. He platted 30th. In fact, there was a planned 9-hole golf course that would have been across from the cemetery, and they, I think, had piped in 3 holes before the Depression hit. So if you look at the original plan, it was intended there would be additional green space there, and I think it would definitely go to his original plan. And I also worry about land scarcity. If we just go one township over in Ada, the beautiful horse farm that was next to Ada Park will be raised after the triathlon happens, and many houses will be put there. I'm sure there'll be nice houses, but I think it takes away from the character of that township and of ours, having grown up on Berwick up the road from that park. And while I absolutely support Trustee McDonald's fiscal conservatism, I'm fiscally conservative myself, I do worry about the scarcity of land in our township. And when an opportunity presents itself, I think that we should take it. And given the available funding in the parkways, the pathways fund that can be used, and my understanding is that we will have a surplus at the end of the millage. It to me makes sense, and therefore I'd like to voice my support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig Merlin.
Good evening, Mr. Merlin.
Good evening. I wanted to follow up, and I think one of the first comments in this section with regard to the minutes, I've also found them to be much better than they were several months ago, and I appreciate that. I will note in this last set of minutes that in the discussion that of Mr. Bloom before the board, and then comments from the audience were asked for, I made one about what does the statutes of the state mean in that certification. Mr. Bloom responded, and I didn't see that response reflected well in the minutes. So I'd encourage that response to be put in the minutes, particularly as our special counsel is making a statement on that matter and giving us an oral opinion on that matter was, in my mind, very helpful.
Thank you.
There are no further comments at this time, Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay, just a second, Manager Swayze, we've got 2 more public comments. Good evening, Ms. Shea.
Hi, thank you. Keely Shea, 7486 Alaska Ridge. And I would like to echo what many of the others have said about the Wycliffe property. Mine is a little bit, I want to say I've been a resident for 15 years, and I'm really concerned about the direction we are going. It's changed drastically since I came in, and I just want to ensure that I know we all have different ideas about what we think is important, but I think most of us who have come to Cascade, we came here for the beauty, which I would equate actually to it's a reminder of God and who we are. And we have cut down so many trees. We have put up so many developments that it's not looking like it did, and it's not feeling like it did, which is, I think, the most important thing. So I would ask that we do just take a minute, and I know we all have different ideas. I'd like to say that what I see when you use fiscal responsibility as a reason for so much, that if you remember that God is abundant and that Cascade Township is abundant, and if there's no limit to God, so to use that as an excuse, I think, actually, I call it the ego, which edges God out. So I would like us to truly take a stand in Cascade for keeping God at the center. And it's no accident that it's referred to as the church on the hill. And we can come together. And I think I would just ask, can we please just take a minute and ask God for his thoughts and his guidance? Because we're all looking at this from our own. Anybody who's open to it, that's what I would encourage us to do. So thank you for your time, and truly thank you for your service. I really believe that we all care deeply, and it's at the heart of Cascade. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Suzanne Ward. I live on Tall Pines Drive. And I have a FOIA request that I received on April 5th. And something stood out to me that I would like to make sure is in the minutes, and that I also can get a follow-up question if it's not tonight, in the future, please. It looks like there was federal COVID relief money that was, I would assume, designated for COVID issues or situations, that was used for Dominion voting systems. And I would like to know how federal CARES funds, when the wording is in the grant is stated expressly for COVID relief, was used for Dominion voting machines purposes. It's about $40,000. And as a follow-up question, what exactly, if it was given to Dominion, which it doesn't seem like it should have been, why was it given to Dominion and what was it used for? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. We did receive this request from a resident that asked if it could be read at tonight's board meeting. It is a statement from Jan, and I know I'm going to slaughter this name, Jan Schichtel at 2805 Thornapple River Drive. And Jan writes, I oppose the township's proposed purchase of the property at 2965 Wycliffe for a neighborhood park. Moving forward, this property without a feasibility study and a plan for how it would be used is ill-advised, especially given the price of the property and the extensive work that would be required to turn it into a place that benefits the entire township. It makes more sense for the township to focus attention and funds on the completion of the plan for Tassel Park, maintenance of the pathways, and construction of pedestrian bridges over the Thornapple in the lower village and over I-96 on Burton. And as I write this, I hear sirens of our hardworking fire department's trucks as they respond to another call. The process of constructing our new fire station was supposed to begin in March. The board has repeatedly delayed this well-researched project, despite the fact that residents identified a new fire station as a priority 2 years ago. The board should focus on the fire station before investing in another park. And that is the only request I received from the public to be read into the record.
Thank you. That concludes this portion of public comment. Article 6, approval of consent agenda. Is there discussion or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the consent agenda.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley to approve the consent agenda, approved by
Support.
trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, financial actions. there discussion or a motion for financial actions?
I move to approve.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8, unfinished business. This brings us to item 022-2021, the potential purchase of 2965 Wycliffe Drive. I'd like to note we have Mr. Scott Hogan in the audience available for questions tonight surrounding the letter of intent or moving forward. There's also could be questions about a closed session depending on what the board decides, if anything, tonight. So he is here, and we also have a member of the board of the Parks Committee, Mr. Matt Douglas, who will also speak briefly on this issue. This was my motion, my recommendation, and there is overwhelming public support. There's a huge and intense pressure for development and growth. There is less and less green space available. This property fits squarely within multiple neighborhoods that right now are fully developed. This is the last remaining parcel of a larger parcel of land. It's unique with its historical nature, its historic stone wall and 2 stone columns, its elevation where you can look over and see the river and the extension or soon to be of Tassel Park. It's close proximity to the downtown area, although so far I don't think we've done very much to make it a quaint downtown area. But if you think long-term, I was at the Cascade Barber Shop myself, and Andy Biermacher, who owns and runs that, who grew up in Cascade, whose dad was a barber at the same spot, has all these black and white pictures. And he's got a photo of if you're standing at the property on Cascade Road and you're looking at the bridge towards the downtown area, it's black and white and it's just a field. Everything was cut. It's a fantastic picture because you're looking at the same area that we go by every day, but it's an entirely different snapshot. It looks like a different spot. So if this board looks proactively 20, 30, 40 years down the road, what will that spot look like? And how much would we give for a spot like this with its close proximity and its quiet point nature 50 years from now? When I look at what this township board has spent on our admin building renovations, the proposed overwhelmingly support we've had for a $6+ million township hall, all of these decisions that they've made, despite our expensive and well put together strategic plan and our parks plan that we paid good money and consultants for, that this fits squarely within our long-term goals and that it's a priority for residents. It fits in part of the extended pathway, all of the priorities. We have not purchased, this board hasn't purchased one park since our outdated 2014 park survey. We haven't done one thing to expand green space. I frankly don't think we've done one thing, really one valuable thing to maintain the character that Cascade has. And I think that we are in a unique position. Our population has expanded even more quickly than what was anticipated by our consultants in those plans. We blew through that projection. So these kind of opportunities have to be taken advantage of. And I'm thankful that Treasurer Pierce, members of this board have put Cascade in a fiscal, we are fortunate to be in a position where we have this money. We have more than enough money to complete every expensive pathway project, including a bridge on the edge of the township that goes directly into Kentwood. While we've done nothing for the bridge over on Cascade over the Thornapple, nothing. But we've got a bridge that goes to Kentwood on the edge of our township. It's $750,000 over budget. Even if we do that with our pathway funds, there's still plenty of money in our restricted funds that could be used for this purchase. Having said that, it's an expensive, it's still money. It's up to this board as a whole. I realize I've been an outspoken advocate for the purchase of this property and for preserving Cascade and focusing on maintaining Cascade's character, but there's 7 of us board members. So tonight the board has several options. And I'm simply asking at a minimum, that we continue to talk. We don't close the door on this opportunity. I can't force the board to spend money and I can't force the board to feel a certain way. But personally, at a minimum, all I'm asking for today, and this doesn't require closed session, is to continue to talk and not close that door prematurely. And I think it makes sense given the overwhelming public support. Thank you. I'm sorry. And then Mr. Douglas from the Parks Committee would also like to speak. I like it, so we're biased.
I'm Matt Douglas and I'm from 7131 Orin, up the hill from the proposed park. I teach ecology and botany and zoology at Grand Rapids Community College, and in a previous life, I taught at Harvard and Boston University, and the good fortune of meeting a gentleman from the Frederick Olmsted Park Commission. I don't know if everyone knows who Frederick Olmsted is, but he created the Central Park in New York, and he created the Emerald Isle type parks in Brookline, Massachusetts and Boston, Massachusetts. And they preserve their walls there. They preserve their stairways. You can't take them apart because it's against the law. So I think that's a good step in the right direction. But if you look at Cascade from where I am, we are in a very biodiverse area. We have a little park over here, the museum park. We have Tassel over there. And if you look at the hill, we have kind of the golden triangle of parks possible. And I think we should vote to put those parks in. I'm going to tell you why. Because as you pointed out, God is not creating any more land, right? And we are stewards of the land. And when I came to Cascade 17 years ago, I was amazed at the greenery around here. And I come from East Grand Rapids near Reeves Lake, which is pretty green, but you had a lot more. You have a lot more going for yourself than you could possibly imagine. So if you can project yourself in the future, as you stated, 50 years from now, where you have a triangle of little parks here, this downtown is not going to stay small. It's going to change quite a bit. The biodiversity of that little park there is really amazing because you have a small forest, you have a potential for a butterfly garden, you could put a splash pad in there, you can have a great walkway with pine trees coming up it. You got to think in the future because land is limited and it's, we have to take care of it. So if you think of what we have right here, we have three really fairly diverse parks, at least for what we want them for. We have a kayaking park. You can swim over there. You can sit down, have a lunch over here. But the one on the hill, I call it the Church Park. I think it needs a name. Call it Church Park. I think that would complete the trilogy. And people like trilogies, don't they? Everything's in threes, right? So I would say, if you want biodiversity to maintain itself, you need to buy another parcel of land that's only 4 acres, and think about the future of what you'll have. In my little yard of 1/3 of an acre, I have 30 species of birds. I took out all the grass. I just want you to know. I don't believe in grass. I'm kidding. Grass is nice in its own spot. So I took it all out and we have a number of species of birds, 20 mammals. I mean, it's a lot. They're just packed in. I have a zoo in my backyard. Why not create a little zoo for children around the schools here where they can come in? And it used to be like that. Mothers used to come in with their carriages and they would sit there and eat lunch and kids ride their bikes over there. There was a basketball hoop there. Kids would play basketball. Why not make that a family of little parks that we have in the center of this township? I think that would be spectacular. I work with Monarch Watch. That could be made into a fantastic Monarch Watch butterfly garden. It's a whole system around the country. We could become a really nice keystone feature of that entire system. And I could go on and on and on, but I can tell you, to my biology students, you can't save the Pantanal of Brazil. You cannot save the Amazon, but you can save pieces of land here and you can work with it. You can work with nature. You've got most of what you need already there. You just need a little forethought. You can involve universities and Calvin students, et cetera, to help work for it. You got a whole community that could work for this. I think it's a great opportunity. That's where I would go. I'm pretty opinionated, as you can tell, but that's what I would do. So I hope the township listens to what I have to say. I think it's very important. Most of the people in my neighborhood are gunning for a park. So that's it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. If the board has any questions, open it up for discussion, motions. Trustee Shipley.
I have a motion to make, and I don't know if it's proper to do this, but I'm going to anyways. Before I make the motion, I've got just a couple comments. When we started discussing this property a long time ago, I brought up, I'd like to see a plan, how we're going to develop it. I have not yet once see a plan other than there'll be a trailhead for the trails. That's it. We need to have citizens involved, turn this parcel, if the board buys it, into something that's number one, usable, number two, maintainable, and number three, is accessible to everybody. I have no idea what the stone wall is about. I've only been here since 1968, so I'll find that out later. I would like to make a motion at this time that the township board purchase the property and at the same time, post haste, sell the property on Thornapple River Drive. That's my motion.
Second. Can we discussion?
Yeah, let's have some discussion.
Sure.
Okay, well, I'll be the foil. I don't mind being the bad guy because I'm completely honest. And like I've said many times, I try to remove emotion from logic when I make decisions. And this is a very emotional decision. I've spent as much time as anybody in this township on open space. We have 300 acres of open space. Peace Park, so if you want to build a butterfly preserve, go out to Peace Park or to Burton Park where we have 80 acres. So we have 280 acres there combined. And I want us to have more open space. We have some potential property out near Peace Park, 30 or 40 acres that I think, yes, we should preserve and we should pursue more properties in open space. But we also have to be cognizant of money, unfortunately. I sat where Timmy sat January 22nd, 2016. There were 150 people, residents here, about ready to hang the board because we were considering a new township hall. We had not even put out for any bids. And the estimate was $7 million. We had approved it. We weren't going to approve it. We didn't have a detailed plan. But the residents told us, one, we better have a detailed plan. Two, don't surprise them. Three, involve them and make good decisions. We killed that plan. That's $7 million. We then projected to do a different township hall for $3.5 million, and we only spent $2.5 million. This project here, potential project, and I love open space and I love parks, is going to be at least $700,000 to $800,000. We basically have about 2 usable acres. I've heard a lot of complaints, including a good idea from Grace that says, hey, we can put a park up there, but people can't access it because they're worried about crossing the bridge. And I agree. So why don't we look at doing like what Lowell did? And that is why don't we evaluate if we're going to spend this kind of money to integrate that neighborhood? Because people said, boy, I'd like to be integrated to Castle Park. I'd like to be integrated to Burton Park and the rest of the township. Why don't we take that money and build a bridge, a safe bridge over the Thornapple River? Lowell Township is built across the Grand to integrate some of their paths. Ada has a plan to go from Roselle Park across the Grand River down along Pettus Road at Chief Hazy Cloud to tie all that together. That's a much more complex project. I know there are challenges. I also agree with, is it Matt? Like Mr. Van Solkom says, why are you buying these properties? When I moved here in 1985, there were 9 or 10 homes right now where Castle Park is. Nobody thought that would ever be anything, that could ever be a park because there were all those homes there. And there was the muffler shop. But that board back in the 80s had vision. And they said they went to all those homeowners and got right of first refusal. Today, 20, 30 years after that, we have Castle Park. We've also acquired Tuffy Muffler, so we have that property. So we can continue to grow our park space along riverfront property. And I think that was the long-term vision we'd like to do on the other side, if at all possible. That doesn't happen in a year or 2 years. It happens over decades. So yes, you're right. We need to have a vision for what we're going to do with some of these spaces. But we have to be reasonable. Like I said, I sat where Timmy sat, we got skewered for just considering spending a lot of money. And to spend $700,000 to $800,000 on roughly 2 acres. I would rather see us spend that money on 20 or 30 or 40 acres, or spend that money on a bridge over the river to make it safe. I think one of the residents, Mr. Grutchow, also mentioned, hey, why don't we look at building a bridge to better integrate that side of the river over into the township, into the village? And I would be totally for that. But I remember those residents saying, don't spend our money unwisely. And by the way, almost every development, potential development, I've seen it at when Laraway Lake was going to be developed, and that became, then that was developed. When Manchester went in, those are all nice homes now. Every residential neighborhood, when a development's going to go in, because there are dozens of properties for sale in Cascade Township. How do we decide to buy A over B over C over D? I think we need a process to make that decision. So, because I'm all for neighborhood parks and I'm all for open space, but we need to do it across the township. And I love that property up on the hill. I really do. I was up there today. I went to look at it again. I absolutely agree. It's a beautiful piece of property. But for $700,000 or $800,000, isn't there a lot more we could do? So I just can't. And I think it could be one or two nice homes, beautiful homes up there. I just think it's just too much money for the township to spend when we could spend it on other areas and have more open space and or a bridge over the river to help those neighbors who've said, I need a good bridge, a good way to cross. So that's why I've been very concerned about the property. The price is just exorbitant.
Trustee Shipley.
Counterpoint, we have mitigating circumstances here. That property owner has already got 2 other people interested in the property. We have first right, so to speak. Yes, we may be paying more money. I'll tell you right now, yeah, I'd love to have a pedestrian bridge over the river. It's not going to happen this year, and it's not going to happen within 5 years. And within 5 years, that property on Thornapple River Drive is still going to be vacant with a fence there, and Scott still won't be able to launch his kayaks.
Well, you can go, yeah, you can go down the street to Castle Park.
Yes,
You
Scott,
launch them right
drag
there.
it across Cascade Road.
We don't own the property. We don't own the property on Wycliffe.
We're talking about the river here.
I know, but she said trade. Well, we don't own the property up there. We don't own the property on Wycliffe. No, about 5 years ago.
5 years.
5 years ago. By the way, there are also groups of residents who have contacted me who are very much against spending that much money for the property. But go ahead. Sorry, Jim.
When last month ago, the board exercised a $10,000 refundable deposit to look at an intent letter. And part of that letter says that we will conduct due diligence necessary regarding Wycliffe. And John started out by saying it, we don't have any yet. We have no due diligence. We have no, other than saying it's a nice piece of property. We haven't evaluated it against other properties in a township that may serve an area where there are no parks. We've got Tassel Park very close to this one. And there's some areas of the township that don't have any parks. And we haven't evaluated why this is good and why it's not. Certainly the people that live there, I can understand, because we had a situation that happened before on Laraway Lake Drive where there was a piece of property there that the same thing was going to happen and they wanted the township to buy it. Well, why? Just because somebody wants to develop the township should buy it? And we said it could be a park, but we're interested. We hadn't gone through the due diligence of buying that property and making it into a park. So, this is the same thing we've had now. We've been talking about this for months. We have never done due diligence, and we don't know the reason why to buy it, other than, like Tom says, nobody's against green space, but what makes this ideal? There isn't any facts.
The
And
Parks
it's
Committee.
way overpriced.
The Parks Committee has spoken at the last 3 meetings about this property. You received a recommendation from the Parks Committee.
No, I don't think so.
Yes, you did. We talked about it in the committee session, you, myself, and I believe Treasurer Pierce.
I
So the
listened to
recommend-
Parks Committee.
You have an
meetings.
environmental survey that says nothing unique, specific. It's just red herrings. You, Trustee Kessel, and you, Trustee McDonald, are adamantly opposed to the purchase of this park.
Yes, I am.
You say in one sense, you also were adamantly supportive of a $7 million township hall and have zero problems
No,
rubber
no,
stamping
that's not
going
true.
$750,000 over budget on our brand new admin remodel. No questions with that.
No, your
You have
facts are wrong.
No, they're
Grace,
not.
your
The
facts
numbers,
are wrong.
they're not. And what you told me, Trustee McDonald, is you see nothing special about this piece of property, one, and two, you're concerned that it would hamper your ability to acquire, or the township's ability to acquire the Forest Hills admin building down the road someday, if it were go to sale, where you'd love a skate park. We can put skate parks in Flint. We can put skate parks at Wycliffe. We can put skate parks anywhere. I believe that this property is unique. Long-term, it's a valuable asset. I disagree that there's nothing done. It's completely insincere to say we haven't done any due diligence. You have an estimation for what it would cost if you want to demolish the property. You have an environmental survey that it indicates no asbestos, nothing unique or concerning about the property. You've got a survey. You have asked me for absolutely nothing. You have asked the Parks Committee for nothing. So if you're just opposed, I guess the board will vote. I support it. I've advocated for it. I am 1 out of 7 votes, but ultimately, at a minimum tonight, I would just ask that we continue to talk, and the market will dictate what the price is. We paid good money for a strategic plan and a master plan, none of which talk about fancy admin buildings, township hall, and skate parks, all of which emphasize to live in this type of community and to maintain it, green space is important, and that's a unique piece of property. So I guess at the end of the day, we disagree, but let's just keep the issue alive because there's overwhelming public support.
Grace, I've done more in the last 15 years, I've done more for open space in this township than you've done in your entire life.
You say that all the
And
time, but you
yeah.
say that.
I'm not, I also know that our residents want us to respect how we use their money. John said, be a good steward of their money. I just don't see $800,000 for essentially 2 acres as being a good use of our money.
It should be price per opportunity, not price per acre.
I would like to add something if I could, please. I know what you're saying is 2 acres, but it's really 3.86.
Correct, but
It's
use.
very diverse biologically because it goes down a ravine. That is very diverse. It's got its own forest. If it took out the asphalt, you would have a field there. Species diversity depends on diversity of the habitat.
Yeah.
Burton Woods is a great woods. It's not very diverse. It's a great place to walk and see, etc. But this is in the middle of a fairly suburban area, and it's not just 2 acres. Any more than Tassel Park is only 3 acres. Tassel Park does its job, right? The museum park does its job. Do we have a biodiverse area in this particular area that can unite all these features that people look for? No, we don't. We have to go quite a ways away, and I've been to all the parks here. So we have to go quite a ways away to appreciate that kind of nature. We can have that right downtown if we just look ahead a little bit. So I'm not knocking what you're saying. I just want to make sure you know it's really 3.86 acres.
Right.
And it's very diverse.
Right.
If we could make it even better.
Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
love to give you a plan.
I'm familiar with biological diversity. I'm in the Land Conservancy of West Michigan. And I did help with a study that Aquinas College did back on the property that became Peace Park. So I'm really familiar with those.
Next, if someone breaks something up regarding the previous purchases of Thornapple properties. From the minutes of the Township Board meeting, September 23rd, 2015, 062-2015, Manager Swayze reviewed the township's strategic plan relative to the goal to develop the riverfront into a pedestrian-friendly destination. Approximately 2 weeks ago, we became aware of 2 properties along the Thornapple River that were available on the market. These properties are 2800 and 2804 Thornapple River Drive. The township made an offer of $195,000 for the house and $75,000 for the vacant land. Both those together is just a half acre.
Madam Supervisor,
Motion was made by trustee Lewis, supported by trustee McDonald to approve. the
Madam
purchase.
Supervisor,
Pardon?
Treasurer
there's a
Pierce.
motion in front of the board. I think audience participation is inappropriate at this time.
We're only citizens of the township. And I'm just reading your history.
This is,
Technically, the public bias aside, let's hold off public comments. I apologize until the second portion. But it's hard to walk the line in this seat.
And I, go ahead, Timmy.
Okay, I have a lot to say, but I have to open it with just a couple questions. On the Tuffy Muffler property, how wide is that down Thornapple River Drive? Is it like 110 feet? Does anybody know?
What's the point?
Yeah, but is it like 110 feet? Is it 80 feet, 90 feet wide? I think that one was just around 800,000. And then we bought the house below or the building below for another couple $100,000. So there's a substantial amount of money in there for, I'm gonna say like 100, 110 feet of riverfront. Now, with that in mind, real estate's kind of my wheelhouse. I've been doing this for 18 years, 15 of it as a broker. So as far as the value of the property, I think there's a little bit of, they're asking so much money for it, but you know, that property was available to everybody in this room for the price they bought it for. Shame on us for not jumping on it. Kudos to them for doing it. But that doesn't change the value of that property. There's two developers that are willing to jump on that. We're not overpaying for almost 4 acres of a very unique piece of property. It does fit, so I did go do a little search. Our strategic plan calls for park space. Neighborhood park space was the number 2 on the survey. Pathways, it would be a trailhead for pathways. And also all over our strategic plan, it calls for Cascade as a destination. This would be a destination. You would have people coming up from Hastings, Middleville, Lowell, Saranac, Caledonia, all these little towns. Bike riders, which I'm not, but they put their bikes on the back of their car and they drive to a trailhead. They take their bikes off and they go and enjoy the trail. So it would be a destination in downtown Cascade. So it has value in 3 different areas of our own strategic plan. So to say that it's too much money for 4 acres, it wasn't too much money for Tuffy, I don't understand. This fits our plan.
It's called a false equivalence. You're mixing apples and oranges. I don't think you can take the property that's adjacent to Tassel Park on the riverfront and say it's the same as, although, like I said, I love that property up on the hill. But riverfront property inherently has more value. You know that to me.
Okay, so let's sell the 2 lots on Thornapple River that nobody can use.
Well, like I said, I'm not opposed to continuing the discussion.
And it doesn't fit our strategic plan. There's no way we're gonna put all that together. Do we have any first right of refusals on any of those houses?
I don't know. I'm not.
No. Does anybody? Is there first right of refusal on any of those houses from Cascade Road down to those 2 vacant lots that we have $300 and some thousand in that nobody can walk on?
Madam Chairman, may I remind the board that I believe, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, that our $10,000 hold is only good for a few more days?
30 days, I believe, expires tomorrow. Yes. No harm, no
So-
foul, but it was a 30-day reservation.
Right, so for us to say, let's continue the discussion, I don't think that's an option at this time.
not under the same terms, although until the property is sold, negotiations can all, or discussions can continue. That's an issue of, we
They want 4.
And as a mom of 3 kids and watching technology impact lives over the years, kids have way too much time to sit on their phones, sit on their computers. We're all going to have hopefully grandkids one day. 4 people can find a house. The whole Cascade Township can't find an extra park. It's not. Right? So I hope people not.
So speaking as the new township supervisor, this isn't as far as running a clean meeting, this is not one. Nope, that's not your fault. It's squarely on me. So I apologize for the aspect of running a clean meeting. But we can get that answer to you, or it's not an answer. Let's just board discussion / motion. And I apologize on behalf of all the people who are watching, Treasurer Pierce, clean meetings, my dad. But it's a fine line between being brand new and focusing on transparency and public comments and why you're elected, and then Robert's Rules of Order. So thank you for everyone's patience.
You still have a motion on the floor.
Could you repeat your motion, please?
My original motion, which was seconded by Nordike or Hook, whatever your name is, was to go ahead with the intent of purchasing the Wycliffe property and putting the Thornapple property post haste up for sale.
That's a motion by Trustee Shipley to
Go forward with the intent to purchase the Wycliffe Hill property, whatever process that may be, and post haste list the Thornapple property for sale by the township.
seconded by Trustee Nordhook. All in favor?
Want to do a roll call?
Roll call for clarity.
Yeah, you better.
Clerk Slater?
Trustee Kessel,
No.
trustee McDonald,
No.
treasurer Pierce,
No.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, no, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. I would make a motion to continue negotiations.
Support for whatever it's worth.
It's a motion by Supervisor Lesperance, supported by Trustee Shipley to continue negotiations on the Wycliffe property. 2965. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
clerk Slater, no, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Article 9, new business. We're going to stay in our lane. Item 542021, resolution for road closure for Hidden Hills Court. Manager Swayze, a brief overview, please.
Great, thank you. So the township has received a request from the Hidden Hills neighborhood to close Hidden Hills Court for a block party. The neighborhood party would be held Sunday, June 27th, 2021, from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. While the Kent County Road Commission is the agency that's officially responsible for road closures, they require a resolution from the township board before they'll consider the request. Both Chief Majors and Deputy Diapa have reviewed the request and do not have any concerns for the road closure. The road closure should not affect any traffic movements through the neighborhood. I would also add that we have successfully approved road closures for Hidden Hills neighborhood in the past. That's it.
Thank you. Discussion or a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the resolution for road closure for Hidden Hills Court. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 055-2021, resolution to vacate the street adjacent to west line of lot 21 of the Arden Hills plat. We have planner Brian Hilbrands here to walk us through this item. Welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor. So in our packet here, we have a resolution to vacate the right-of-way here. It's on the south side of 28th Street. One quick note on that resolution, as I was looking through that again this afternoon, there's one minor change that needs to be made in the second paragraph. It mentions that the board will be holding a public hearing, but this process doesn't require a public hearing. It's just the approval of this resolution. So I would recommend striking that mention of that. So that would read, whereas the Township Board at a regular meeting of said board held on this day of June 2021 has determined that it is advisable to vacate the street. So that paragraph would read like that. So we get requests like this every once in a while. This is what we call kind of a paper street where it's never actually built, but still shows up on maps there as the right of way. It's located between 6390 and 6420 28th Street. So that's where there's a abandoned Pizza Hut building and a motel then. It's right in between those two buildings. So the street was originally part of a plat approved in 1950. Those plats, however, no longer exist and the area is now commercial. The right of way is owned by the Kent County Road Commission, so most of the process involves them. They just need to sign off from the local governing body here. So the Kent County Road Commission staff has indicated that they will also support the vacation of the right of way. So it's always good to see that. And in order for the applicant to move forward with the request, they need your approval here tonight. And so staff are recommending adoption of the resolution to allow the vacation as requested.
Thank you. Motion or discussion? Or is there anyone here wishing to speak on that topic?
The applicant's here. I don't know if they feel the need for any comments.
Motion to approve.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley to approve item 055-2021 as written. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you for coming tonight. Item 056-2021, consider an outdoor gathering permit for Watermark Country Club. Manager Swayze?
Great, thank you, Madam Supervisor. So we have received a request from Watermark Properties for an outdoor gathering permit for various events throughout the month of June on the property adjacent to the Watermark Country Club, which is located at 5500 Cascade Road Southeast. The stated number of attendees for the events is between 200 and 300, and attached for your view is the outdoor gathering permit application. So we've reviewed the application for the outdoor gathering permit and offered just one requirement, that they need to apply for and receive any necessary permits for temporary structures from the building department. Seeing as this is their third request already this year, I do know that they have received those permits. The proposed requirements will be reviewed with the applicant. We've received a similar requests from Watermark Properties in the past, which were held without incident, including several events in the month of May. I believe after June has ended, the outdoor pandemic requirements from the state will be lifted, as will most of the indoor ones as well. So I don't know if this is their last request or not, but they potentially would come back if they had some July events with that as well. But as I mentioned, we have not had any reported issues with the outdoor wedding events that they're having at this facility.
Thank you.
And I think the first one was June 5th.
That's correct. So the first one was June 5th. They did not get the application to us in time, so I'm assuming they held that event.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I move to
Motion,
approve.
further discussion?
I move to approve.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the outdoor gathering space permit for Watermark Country Club. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 10 relates to whether or not this board would like to go into closed session, which is permissible under the Open Meetings Act regarding negotiating or purchase price for property. And it was related to the Wycliffe item mentioned earlier. Discussion, Mr. Hogan is here as well. So Manager Swayze, please explain the legalities to the board and they can answer any questions and make
Yep.
that determination.
Mr. Hogan might be able to explain it better, but on the advice of our attorney, based on the unknown action that was going to happen tonight, I would recommend that the township board choose not to go into closed session so that the attorneys have the opportunity to evaluate the decision that was made and determine if going into closed session is a proper way to proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't see a need for a closed session.
Thank you. Article 11, public comments. Same rules apply. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name and address, approach the podium, and we'll take comments virtually as well. Thank you. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes,
Yeah,
please.
it will be. Scott Metsalkoma, 2570 Orange again. I'm over the past summer, I've been riding my bike quite a bit on the pathways, and they're great. I'm very happy to have them, that we have them. And I'm not riding in the street. I don't ride as fast as some of the cyclists that ride $5,000 to $10,000 bikes that are carbon fiber and all that. However, while riding them, they are extremely bumpy. I've rarely seen any crack sealant. There's lots of weeds that have gone through, tree roots that have uprooted them. I used to work for Cascade Buildings and Grounds back in the late 90s when they first put in the Cascade Road pathway. That was the first one. We had this huge big John Deere tractor that would blow snow basically almost all the way across Cascade Road. But riding on that stretch of path, it's, like I said, very bumpy. I don't think there's really been any maintenance done. Now, it's great to expand the pathways. I know the addition from 36th down to almost Whitneyville, that's a great piece of path and property. But I'm curious as to why there was about 1,700 feet added on the other side of Cascade Road near Hall Street to Galbraith. It doesn't connect any neighborhoods. It connects like a business park. There's that huge wall that was put up that Donald Trump would be envious of, with the retaining wall and everything. I just don't know why that part was there. I'm all for expanding the pathways, but I'd also really like to see more maintenance done on them. It's like, it's great to, let's upkeep what we have. There's sections along the YMCA on Burton that it's almost like washed out and lots of potholes. Along Thornapple River, there's big divots and sunken in spots. I don't know. I've also ridden into the Ada pathways, and those pathways, I don't know if they're just newer or they were designed differently or made thicker or what have you, but I rarely see any cracks in any of their paths, especially on Bailey, McCabe, Knapp, Grand River. So just my thinking as to, like, let's maintain what we do have before expanding more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Keely Shea, Alaska Ridge, and I just have to say something, given what transpired tonight. My heart, there's some quote, and I don't know a whole lot of quotes from the Bible, but if you're faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. And if you're dishonest in little things, you'll be dishonest in large ones, something to that effect. And the reason I'm speaking up is because this is our community and this is our town. And it looks like there are just a few that for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is, you've chosen to not listen to the people. You say you have people. I don't see or hear any of them here that were opposed. So I don't know who you're listening to. And Tom, with any due respect, you say you're the biggest parks person, but what I have found in life is if somebody has to tell you who they are, there's a pretty good chance we're not seeing it for ourselves. So you say that, and for you to disrespect Grace in the way you did.
I didn't
tell her that-
disrespect
Yes,
Grace.
you did. You said you've done more for this.
Cascade Township. And that's,
I would
and that's a
completely
fact.
disagree.
Well, that's a
It's
fact.
not a fact.
I can go,
It's your opinion.
Ms.
but-
Shea, I can prove to you the work that
Okay,
I did
well,
for
so-
300 acres.
Okay, so then I'm sorry that I have to bring this up. I've been doing a little research, but we have to, I think the public deserves an answer. I received a postcard last summer with the election. There were several of you on it. I know there was Tom McDonald and Jim Koso and someone else. And the postcards were mailed out, and the bottom of the postcard read, paid for by the Cascade Trustee Election Committee, and listed your home address.
And that was it. And
just-
I corrected that with the elections officials at Kent County.
What do you mean you corrected it?
I went to the Kent County and asked, and they said, you need, the next time, which we did, change that to election, to elect Tom McDonald. And I went through that with the state and with the county and corrected it. I followed their exact procedures. So that was all
Okay,
corrected.
so
with-
there was a campaign finance law broken.
No,
No, well, I would just like to ask if we could look into that because
it's already been looked
I-
into at
Okay.
both the county level and the state level. And I followed their instructions immediately in July of 2020, and they said there was no issue. I went through with the elections officials and
Well, can
Lisa
we
Post,
see-
in
can we
Lisa,
see that documentation?
you can go right online and look at it.
Okay,
You can go to accesskent.com, you can go right to it. You can see the $5,000 that a couple of people, the $25,000 that was given to Grace and to Timmy to run against us.
No, I'm not talking
So-
about that.
and
I'm
it's in the
asking,
same place.
I'm asking
It's-
about the
Michelle, it's in
fact
the same
that
place.
thousands of postcards were sent out.
You go to accesskent.com and it talks about that. It says this mistake was made. This was how it was
No, it
corrected.
doesn't, Township McDonald, and no, it doesn't, and it is not the same because we followed basic campaign finance law. You denied it. That is not true. You're not being truthful, and you brought us into that, and
Yeah,
that's
I'm
not
being truthful,
accurate.
and
I don't want to go there. I don't want to get into this with you, but don't misstate the facts and don't drag Trustee Nordhook and
I
myself
agree.
into it because we followed the law. We followed
I
the
followed the
law,
law
and you're under
exactly.
investigation. So
No.
if you want to misstate facts all day long, that's fine, but keep us out of it because I followed the law and so did Trustee Nordhook, and you didn't, and you misstated that. And you can be proven on accesskent.com.
I did not violate the law.
I didn't
at
bring
all.
it up. I just don't want to be a part of it.
I don't either, Grace, but I did not violate the law.
I'm not going down
So
that mud.
You're
rabbit
going
hole.
down the mud path.
I didn't. Don't bring me into it.
I
You
did
are
not.
lying and I'm not gonna be a part of it. I don't want to touch it. I didn't bring it up, but don't bring me into it and don't touch my name to that because that's
And-
not
and
true.
Don't touch, and don't say I violated the law because I did not.
You violated the campaign finance law. It's a fact. You misstated that right now. I don't want to go there, Tom. I don't want to, but don't drag me into it. And and don't put me in a position where you're lying and then looking for me to verify it. You're not telling the truth.
No.
And
I'm
you're
telling
giving
the truth
her,
and you're not,
you're giving
so-
our residents false information.
I am not.
I've been on accesskent.com as a candidate who's sitting here today. And what you told our resident is not factually accurate. That is not true. So
It is factually accurate and you can go and access it.
I did. And you're under investigation by the Public Finance Committee of the state of Michigan that hasn't been closed yet. So if you want to roll in them, I don't want to touch it, but don't misstate facts to our residents. And as a supervisor and a publicly elected official, I have a duty to stop you as a trustee if you are providing false information to our residents.
I'm
So
not providing false information.
then we'll agree to disagree and move on.
We'll agree to disagree.
I don't want to touch it. I didn't bring it up, but I'm not going to sit here and listen to you spread false facts to residents that are not facts.
I'm not spreading false facts, Grace.
Well, we agree to disagree.
It's not an issue for Manager Swayze. It's an issue for the Kent County Elections Department.
It's an issue for the public who has a right to this kind of information when they're making decisions about who they elect. And it's also a matter of public record, which is why it's important that if you create a committee under a valid name And that allows the public to research that information. When you create a committee, you send thousands of postcards out to thousands of residents, and you create a fake non-existent committee name and put your home address, then you have made it impossible to access that information that the public is entitled to.
Grace,
There was no committee that existed at that time. It doesn't exist today. And for you to say it's all public resolved mistake isn't accurate.
Grace, you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
I
made it-
didn't make it. I'm
I
just
made-
not going to be dragged
I
down
made a
in it with
mistake.
you.
I made a mistake. I went July of 2020 to the Kent County Elections Committee. I said, I made a mistake, and they said, here's how you correct it, and I followed their procedures. You're making a mountain out of a molehill.
No, you're, that's,
You knew what you're supposed to do.
No.
you're
I
confusing
made-
who researches, who investigates campaign finance law violations, which is the state of Michigan, with your conversations with the local Kent County Clerk's office. And it's disingenuous and it's confusing to the public. You had conversations at the county level with the clerk's office. The state is the body that looks into violations. So it's
You're making a mountain out of a
you know
molehill.
better.
No, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. So
It's misleading and so disrespectful to the public to provide false information. All of this is verifiable publicly, which is why we have campaign finance laws to begin with, so that the public can know who they're voting for and can access information that they have a right to. That's why they're important. We follow them also.
right. But nobody tried to buy me like somebody spent $25,000 trying to buy the board. And I thought that was wrong.
Don't
No,
throw my
wait,
name
you
in
gotta
there.
watch your facts.
When you say the board, you threw my name in there. buddy.
Yeah. And you put his name on the website that you created that also was paid for by a non-existent committee. So I don't want to go here, but if you want to sling mud, make sure you get your facts right. Because everyone can go online and see exactly who donated to my campaign, Trustee Nordhook's campaign, Trustee Shipley, everyone, it's all access. The issue is it's a non-existent committee that sent thousands of dollars of postcards out from your home address.
Hogan's Heroes comes on in an hour.
Let's get out of here. This is a disaster. This isn't what we need. 4 years was plenty of time. Article. I'm sorry, public comments, any other additional public comments? Article 12, manager comments.
I got to make my comments earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Article 13, board member comments.
As always, I stand up and thank you guys for coming. It's nice to hear from you. Continue coming, bring your neighbors next time. And for the record, my campaign spent 0 pennies, $0.
No comment.
That's all I have.
Thanks for coming.
Article 14, adjournment.
Shipley makes a motion to adjourn.
Second. So motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan, for coming.